Nintendo has peered into its future, and the picture isn't pretty. The game maker, whose consoles and colorful Mario and Donkey Kong characters once helped the company climb to the very top of the video game world, stunned investors on Friday by sharply lowering its financial forecasts. The dire news was the latest indication that Nintendo wildly misjudged the gamer's shift to mobile devices, a miscalculation that could force the company to change course. Nintendo says it now expects to sell 70% fewer of its new consoles, the Wii U, than expected. The company has hoped new games would swell demand for the year-old console over the recent holiday season. That demand never materialized, and the company said even its portable 3DS system, which has been relatively popular, missed forecasts as well. Instead of an annual profit of $527 million, Nintendo plans to report a net loss of $240 million. There have been growing signs throughout the last year that Nintendo has lost a step to bigger game competitors like Sony and Microsoft, and more enticing devices made by the mobile industry. But the numbers released Friday laid bare for the first time the extent of the damage. Many companies have struggled with technology changes in the games business, but Nintendo is the most prominent casualty. In a sign of the seriousness of its predicament, Nintendo's president said that the company might have to make bold changes to adapt to the mobile devices that have shaken up Nintendo's business, perhaps by releasing its games and characters in some form on those devices. Throughout its decades in the games business, Nintendo has been highly protective of its iconic stable of characters and game franchises, releasing games only for its line of hardware devices. At a news conference in Osaka, Satoru Iwata, the president of Nintendo, said the company was considering a new business structure. Given the expansion of smart devices, we are naturally studying how smart devices can be used to grow the game player business, according to Mr. Iwata. It's not as simple as enabling Mario to move on a smartphone. Now, sales of Nintendo's portable game players began to sink several years ago, just as the adoption of smartphones started rising. Later, the growth of the iPad and other tablets put more pressure on Nintendo's portable and Wii console systems. There are hundreds of thousands of games for mobile devices, many of them free to play, and some are enormously popular, like Candy Crush and Clash of Clans. The question is, would you rather buy a 3DS or a Kindle, an iPad or a Wii U? It really comes down to that decision, and Nintendo right now has been on the real losing end of that choice. With its own hardware sales faltering, analysts have proposed that Nintendo forcefully embrace mobile devices by making full versions of its popular game franchises for iPhones, iPads, and Android devices. I believe that they could release older games for mobile while making the latest Nintendo games for its own devices. That would be a way to sort of split with like partly go with what people are wanting and partly keep its franchises to itself. Now, the 3DS hasn't been doing quite as badly as the Wii U, but even that, the sales have been down. The company now expects to sell 13.5 million 3DS systems, which is 25% fewer than their previous forecast. Now, with all this said, Nintendo has recovered from slumps before, and in September it reported having more than $8 billion in cash and short-term investments, giving it a rather large cushion to fall back on. With that said, Nintendo does need to be careful about where it's going to plan to go in the future, whether it plans to keep making its own hardware, or maybe start to embrace more of the mobile culture and release games for other systems. A helpful comparison to Nintendo is where Sega was in 2001 with the Dreamcast. Sega had just released a brand new console, but it failed to sell really well, so Sega made the slightly harsh decision to just stop making their own consoles and release all of their games for other systems. Now you can play Sonic the Hedgehog on a mobile device for Android or iOS, and it's very easy, and the games they really don't run that badly. The latest example of a game that sold really well on iOS and Android is Sonic Dash, which is an endless runner released by Sega that fully embraces the entire mobile culture with its free-to-play genre, but still has some in-app purchases to fuel the company. Nintendo should consider starting to they wouldn't even have to necessarily go free-to-play, but even just releasing like a full version of their Mario games for Android and iOS, they could charge $20 and people would still buy them. They just need to think about where they're planning to go in the future. Let me know what you think Nintendo should do in the comments below. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!